gone over. It is now. It's four.
Hello and welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. This is our Monday Night World Cup 2022 review show, and the band is back together like Lev Yashin, Gigi Buffon, and De Gea rolled into one. Adam managed to save the show last week and soldiered on bravely, but now we are all back together to get us back on form, back attacking, and you are here with us. It's great to see you, viewers and listeners. And as always, I am joined by my good friends Adam and Andy. Guys, how are we doing?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. How are you, more importantly?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. I was off ill for work, which is like boo in a way, but in a way, there was World Cup, so it was, I watched about six. I think I watched 4 games on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then, of course, the first game I missed today was 3-3, and the second one was 3-2, of course. I did have to sit through Japan, Costa Rica, so I did pay my penance for being off ill. But I was good. I am good. I'm better now. Back at it. Andy, how we doing, man?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Unfortunately, like these 10 o'clock starts are just not suitable for me. I'm at work, and unfortunately, with a job where I have to sort of be on the phone talking to people, and so it's not really conducive to World Cup watching. But I literally woke up yesterday. You know, there's some games where you just look at it and go, like it was the Costa Rica Japan game, and I was just like, no, I am not getting up. I am not getting up for that. It is going to be terrible. And looking at when I was scrolling through Twitter and looking at the highlights, I was just like, yeah, I'm glad I stayed in bed for that one.
I saw a great meme from the Rugrats. Do you remember the show The Rugrats? And It's the dad like making food at 5 a.m. She's like, what are you doing up this early? And he's like, I'm watching Japan, Costa Rica. I've clearly lost control of my life. It was so accurate. So accurate. I did kind of think to myself, what am I doing here? And like the missus was like, what game's this now? She's like, really? Yeah, they all count. I've got to watch them all, got to watch them all. But we're going to start. Right? Yeah, exactly. It's all research. We're going to start with our kind of fun story of the week. And this is now, I love football. I also love grime music. And this is a combination of the two. As Santan Dave, if you follow him on Instagram, he has managed to get himself banned from his own football league for about 14 games. Now, on his story, he says, only got 7 games left of this 14-game ban. This stupid league I'm in put me on. Be when I'm back. Trust me, it's peak, right? He's now been arguing with a guy who's the admin of the league called Ken. And he says, I've got loads of missed calls and keep getting invites to Zoom. He's like, sorry, Ken, I'm a bit busy being Bruce Wayne right now. I will get back to you when I can. But he should be back on the football pitch soon. I just love the idea of he's got this kind of angry persona as a rapper. I imagine he must be like that on the field. Like when you saw this story, Adam, what do you think? I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it was quite hilarious at the same time, right? It was beautiful to see him getting wound up and then comparing his like version of his like band to the likes of Luis Suarez and Eric Cantona. So yeah, just fascinating. You would have thought that the league would forget about the fact that there was a pandemic in the middle of that situation, but yeah, they were quite anal. So Ken, just do one, man.
Exactly, and he also compares his team to Man City, to an oil-rich club because he pays for everything, which I do love. So if anybody out there has played against him in this Super League, I'd love to hear about it. But can you imagine, like, that team must be pretty decent, I imagine there's a lot of his rapper friends on it. Like, Andy, what do you think?
It's just, that said, I've played 5-a-sides, 6-a-sides, 7-a-sides, etc. And when you play in the league, you do get some of the most uptight admins ever. Like if you look at someone the wrong way, they'll give a foul, or I remember one time I went at something right. It was like freezing cold in winter. I was wearing a white top I was supposed to be, and I had like a red undershirt, and he was just like, you can't be wearing that. I was like, I can. It's -1.
You can take it off me if you want.
Yeah, I was just sort of like, well, I could go half naked if you feel like it, but that wouldn't be pleasant for anyone. It's fine. But yeah, I just love it. I just love that no matter how famous you are, football reduces people as having the most petty arguments imaginable.
That's it, exactly. I remember at 14, 15 getting sent off in like 5-a-side for swearing at a referee several times, and like I think we've all done it, right? Where you just lose your temper. I couldn't afford the fine. I'm pretty sure Dave could though, so I think he's all right. He can let that one build up for a while. But we do need to switch to the World Cup. We have missed so much because, as kind of mentioned, there's so much football crammed into one day. We've had to try and remember everything that's happened, but we're going to take you all the way back to what feels like a lifetime ago. And we're going to talk about Iranian and Welsh tears as Iran get an incredible win against a Wales that I think have been less than impressive. Now, the game started with the national anthems for Iran, which this time the players sang the national anthem, apparently being kind of forced to by the politicians. Some of them did, some of them didn't. The ones that did kind of weren't exactly enthusiastic about it. So there'd been words about this, and it kind of puts into context their performance against England. I think a lot of people were talking about how terrible they were. They're a crap team. No, they're a good team. They've got the weight of the world on their shoulders. And I think this game, you saw from the beginning just how much this means to that country at the moment and how much it means to the players. We can get on to Wales and how disappointing they've been. But I'm going to start with you, Adam. What did you make of this performance and how much did you celebrate that first goal when it went in? Because I jumped off the sofa.
I mean, you have to hand it to Iran. I think we didn't give them enough kind of context around why they possibly lost to England, should I say. The emotions were there, and I think it's become a bit more evident that the regime in Iran is the reason why. They probably feared a little bit about the way they were taking this stance against England, for example. Even this match where they were kind of miming, a lot of them, they weren't actually singing the national anthem. Yeah. So fair dues to them, because they've actually got also the Iranian crowd against them as well. It's like there's elements of the crowds that are literally basically saying they're sympathizers of the regime, which, it must be really tough for them. And for them to go out, ignore that, and have that fantastic display. I mean, the goals themselves were magnificent. Even though Wales' hearts were, obviously killed off by these goals, essentially. Wales didn't do very well in this match. And the fact that they scored these two quick goals in succession, into injury time was well deserved. It did seem like when Hennessy was taking a bit of the German philosophy there with his actions before he got sent off there. We won't
Goose stepping out of his area. What was he doing?
he did say he wanted to learn more about German history, and he has. Maybe
it did look like a sketch from John Cleese, didn't it? But yeah,
but no, he went full Schumacher, and you should never go full Schumacher, but he did. But to be fair, I mean, I'm surprised that Ray Hennessy was the starting keeper for Wales. To be honest, I mean, Daniel Ward's no Casillas, but he's better than Ray Hennessy, that's for sure. Yeah,
he's been playing at least. I don't think Hennessy plays regular football. No. I think it was a really strange.
He's a backup. He's a backup. Yeah, he's backup at. What is it? Palace. He's a backup. Burnley. I literally forgot where he was.
I think the fact that it's in the championship, right? He's not getting a game in the championship, so that gives you the idea that Page has kind of trusted these players that maybe have got them through in the past, but right now it's not the right time.
I think Page is similar to Southgate, that he's long since decided who's in his squad, who's in his 11, and nothing that was going to happen over the past year or so was going to change that. I mean, and I think maybe, like, for example, with both Bale and Ramsey, both have had fitness issues over the past year or so. They've not really had a consecutive run of games, and suddenly you're being asked to play 90 minutes with a few days of each other. And I think maybe it would have been a wiser decision to, make a brave decision, stick one of them on the bench, bring them on with about 20, 30 minutes to go when he can make the most impact. A bit like Bale did in the MLS Cup final.
I just think it's very difficult for him to turn around though and say we're not starting Bale. Right?
Yes.
That is like an almost impossible decision. I think it's one of those things that you look at the performances of both him and Ramsey. They were both terrible, basically in both games. But you go, hindsight's 2020. At the time, you would start Bale and Ramsey every day of the week because they are your arguably two of the top 10 Welsh players of all time. But I feel like what's happened is Wales, like you said, Andy, they've kind of got stuck in a time. They've got stuck in that era, and they've not moved on enough. Like that was very similar to the 2016 squad, more or less, right? Yeah. Quite similar. And it's now 8 years later, and what he's not done is brought in the younger players like Joe Morrell, who's been really, really good for Wales every time he's played, didn't get a game. And I feel like Page has just been a little bit too conservative, like you said, with Southgate, not taking those risks. And now Wales, I think, again, touch wood, are going to go home from this tournament without a win. I think they're going to this is like a huge missed opportunity for them. The Iran game, I thought they were genuinely terrible. I thought Iran completely dominated them. The guy who got the second goal, Ramin, was unbelievable the entire game. He absolutely ran that midfield. He's an incredible player. I thought Wales just really didn't leave it all on the pitch, and they're going to look back and be like, we could have done more.
It feels like they've put all of their eggs in the basket for the England game, which as much as I know they'll be absolutely pumped and play a lot better than they did against Survivor. I mean, they couldn't play much worse, to be honest, but they're still giving themselves an awful lot to do, which is strange. And also thought it's a good week as a side note as well. I think it's been a really bad week for managers and players who have said, we're not going to focus on politics. We're going to focus on winning football.
Focus on the football.
And Rob Page was, one of those who was like, we're going to win football matches. Cool, that's going well for you.
Good work, mate. I couldn't, honestly, with those comments, I'm even gladder that you lost. But with Iran, we have to give them their credit. I think against England, obviously, like we kind of alluded to, the occasion was very big. But I think this time we've seen more of the team that they are. And it's now building up to USA versus Iran, which, if it wasn't already enough of a politicized game and enough on the line, the US Football Federation today have decided to post the Iranian flag without the Israeli symbol on it as their sign of protest as to what's going on in the country. Now, the thing is, they didn't tell anybody about this. They just did it. So what they've managed to do is piss off the Iranians to a ridiculous level. And they've managed to put their manager and their players in the firing line to some ridiculously awkward questions today.
Yeah, there was a spicy little press conference out, wasn't it?
Somebody asked Greg Berhalter why he hasn't asked the president to move the gunships from the sea around Iran. Like it's anything to do. Like it is getting very. I think
it's a retaliation, though, isn't it? I think Carlos Queiroz has been quite vocal about the fact he's been asked questions he doesn't feel like he should answer, and he bit back last week saying that, well, why aren't you asking the Americans this? Why aren't you doing this? And obviously the Iranian journalists have actually gone, you know what, let's give it a bit back. And I think it's just, it's got quite sort of petty, I suppose. Like I sort of understand where they're coming from. But, I thought, to be fair, with that, Tyler Adams responded to a very sort of hostile question in a very mature way, especially it was on the spot. I think he handled that really, really well. And I think it's almost become like a bit of a proxy war with journalists going, who could ask the best non-political questions to football or best political questions to footballers just to see what answer they'll get. I mean, at this rate, they're going to have David Dimbleby sat in the fucking press conferences mediating between them.
Jeremy Paxman screaming from the back. But Adam, what do you make of this? A kind of quick preview, I suppose. What do you expect from Iran America? Because this is going to be Iran USA. Sorry.
Yeah.
What do you expect from this game? Because it's going to be heated.
I think there's
right?
going to be
There's a lot on the
fireworks.
line.
There's going to be a lot in the stadium as well. Like, atmosphere is going to be absolutely insane for this one. But I totally expect Iran to be quite pumped up for this and potentially win this quite handsomely. I do expect there to be quite a straightforward win. And he doesn't look like he's that convinced by that assumption. But I actually feel like Iran have got some quality players that I think the difference is I haven't seen anything from USA in the first two games that suggests they've got an attacking outlet. Like, this is the thing that they're lacking, right? If you look at generally the way they play really nicely. Pulisic pulling in the kind of moves, for example. They've got willing runners. They've got a good squad. But I just feel like with Iran, they have more of a threat. They took it against Wales. I think they're going to be, again, pumped up for this one. I think it's going to be quite a comprehensive win. But go on, Andy.
I don't know. I think with the USA, although they're probably a little bit blunt in attack, I think that's mainly due to sort of tactical reasons. I do think that they've got a very solid midfield and very dependable defenders, and they have got a group of players that, you know, are up, sounds such a cliche, but are up for it, like up for a fight, up for a bit of scrap. You saw it against England; they weren't afraid to stick a boot in and rough people up. And I think people like, you know, McKennie and Adams in the centre midfield, they're probably going to relish the slightly hostile game. There's going to be a few tackles flying in, and you know, although in Taremi, this 100% the best striker on the pitch, I think it's going to be very, very cagey. It could go down to one goal. Like, I certainly wouldn't agree that Iran would win comfortably. I think it'll go down to the odd goal here or there. As to which way it'll go, I think that's certainly up for interpretation. But I think it's going to be spicy. There's going to be some red cards. I'm calling it.
I cannot wait. I think this US team with a striker would be a problem. They just don't have that clinical striker. Against England, I thought, Christ, if you had a clinical striker, we'd be 2-3 down by now.
I mean, they've got, what is it, like
really
Josh Sargent. Josh Sargent played for him, who's, you know, only just about started scoring a few goals at Norwich, but he's hardly blown the championship away, is he? But it's
Daryl Dike back. I like Daryl Dike. He's not even called him up, but it's shocking. They should have him there. But we're going to move on from Iran and the US, and we're going to go next to Adam. We're going to throw to you. Lewa gets his first World Cup goal. And it is just a beautiful moment. How much did you enjoy it? Because I really enjoyed this moment.
Do you know what? I'm absolutely pleased for him, more than importantly, because you could see the emotion as he was celebrating. Like, I don't think it's kind of being written too much about his anticipation. Like, I don't think anyone kind of thought he would be that emotional about a goal at the World Cup, but he kind of alluded to the facts prior to the game about how he was a 16-year-old when his dad passed away. He always dreamed of like scoring a goal at the World Cup with his dad being present. And for the last few World Cups, I think he's been trying his best to get that goal and kind of point to the skies. And that moment just made it complete for him. So I think he can now sleep well, basically knowing that he's achieved that, like he's happy. But that result was like, I was surprised. I'll be brutally honest.
Man. It was massive.
Like, I was not anticipating that. I have to have my slice of humble pie and say the positives are the best defensive record of any team at the World Cup.
That's mental.
We've got a Golden Glove contender in Wojciech Szczesny. We could be qualifying out of the group stages. I say could, because I, as much as I don't like the style, we're getting results, and like I am baffled by it because we don't deserve to win sometimes when you look at the balance of the play. But we got the result, which is the most important thing. We did kind of stress this at the beginning that Poland are going to set up in such a way that will frustrate the other team, won't be pretty. It feels like it's an evolved version of Allegri 2.0. It is just like, and I kind of thought the other day, this reminds me of Mourinho days when he was at Porto. You know, the days where everyone didn't like the football. They said there's such an antichrist, but they got results. They won stuff. I'm not saying Poland's going to win the World Cup, but imagine if we could just get out and finish off in the quarterfinal stage. That'd be incredible. And I wonder if this is kind of deliberate as well, because you look at the way we've set up ourselves in the group situation. Like, we only need a draw, right? Potentially to get us through right now. So it'd be fascinating. I mean, I'm expecting us to be dicked on for the best part of 90 minutes and maybe 1 minute of like brilliance from Lewandowski or Zielinski or whoever that be. I don't care who it is. If we score a goal, we are going to go absolutely crazy. And like that Australian meme, I don't know if you guys saw it, but basically, an Australian fan comes, he gets interviewed by Polish press. He knows a few words in Polish and says, so the Polish reporter goes, "Why did you learn Polish over drink?" And he went, "Kurwa mać," like basically, what the fuck? Come on, we always drink with Poles. So yeah, there'll be lots of celebrations, but the Polish fans aren't necessarily behind Czesław Michniewicz. So this is the weird balance that we've got. A team that could progress, but no one's behind the coach. So it's such a weird dynamic.
I think it feels like Polish fans know that the team could play better. There's a lot of exciting players there. There's so many exciting, where you look and you go, like Zielinski or Lewandowski or Szymanski or Moder, or there's a lot of like flary attacking players that have got good technical ability where you could be a bit braver. And I think you just feel like, look, I was really happy for Poland. I lived in Poland for 2 years. I always want them to do well. I was there for one of the World Cups, maybe, that you made it, and the atmosphere was incredible. I always want them to do well, but all my Polish friends in Big Gosh were saying, "Man, it's just boring. We can do better than this. We can do better than this." But they were, of course, delighted with the win. I thought, look, Saudi Arabia had a lot of chances, right? And arguably they should have won the game. But I thought Poland were actually quite impressive. The way their counterattacks were fantastic. Every time you went forward, you looked dangerous. And I think you are doing that style very well. You're just doing that style very well. The Zielinski goal was a really nice finish, really well-worked move. And Szczesny having his moment, I was just really happy for him again.
Double save.
It was a great penalty
save.
Yeah,
that's probably his best moment. It's probably his best moment for Poland, isn't it?
It's got to be, surely.
Yeah. But yeah, I think also thinking about, we've spoken about quite a few teams already. And I think it's a theme of this World Cup is that, number one, there's not too many what you would call world-class managers there, if we're being honest. And second, if you look at the likes of Southgate, Page, Santos, there's a lot of even Deschamps, very conservative managers. I mean, we'll take Martinez out of that because he's just shite.
We're going to talk about him later, don't worry.
Well, yeah, he's on his own different category. At least with Balthazar from the US, they're all very sort of conservative, defense-first managers. And although it's not pretty, in a tournament setting where you've just got to grind out a result, it does work. And I think that's been quite a common theme this World Cup. There's not really been too many teams that are just absolutely going for it. I don't think it's that kind of World Cup, especially with the strain and that's on players of a mid-season World Cup. I think there's going to be a lot of defence first and conserving energy. Especially going to the knockout stages. So I think this is a tournament for the Mourinhos out there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's something that happens every tournament where people are like, "Oh, there's been another 0-0." It's like, well, yeah, guys, tournament football is never that exciting until you get to the later stages because there is so much on the line. There is a lot on the line in every single game. That's why managers tend to be cautious, I think. But for Saudi Arabia, I think now 7 of their 11 play for the same team. And I think that means they all play for Al Sadd, as far as I'm aware, which it kind of shows and helps with the team chemistry. But if you think back to 2002, where they got beaten 8-0 by Germany, right? In 20 years, I think this team has improved a lot. And we have seen a very, very good Saudi Arabia team. Not only the fact that they beat Argentina, but the style of football they play. I would say they've been one of the most entertaining teams of this World Cup so far. What do you think, Adam?
Sorry, it just broke up. Was that for me?
Yeah.
In terms of the style, I mean, I kind of put it towards Harvey Renard. I feel like he's introduced that very much so, because I saw Hervé Renard when he did it for AFCON nations, for example, like Mali, for example. He's done it with Ivory Coast as well. So he can seem to get the best out of these teams by playing this attractive style of football. He even alluded to it after the press conference against Poland that he would probably do things differently in terms of the Polish team, but he wasn't going to kind of say to Czesław Michniewicz how to play the style of football. But it just feels like they've got blessing in terms of the quality of players that we've got at our disposal, that we could do a lot more. And that's definitely the case. I mean, that's backed up by the fact that I think Paulo Sousa before Czesław Michniewicz was trying to do something like that. We started to see a little bit of that come through. And yeah, you got to give credit to Hervé Renard. I feel like he's very much under the radar for a number of seasons because he's been at the lesser nations, and the fact that he's now getting his chance to show what he can do. I mean, I'll just be brutally honest, didn't see that about 18 years ago when he was at Cambridge United. I didn't see that. But yeah, have to hand his due. Amazing achievement.
The guy's CV is crazy. But to wrap up on this Poland-Saudi Arabia bit, I ran out of words. We are going to get a few words from friend of the show, Ryan Hubbard, giving his thoughts on a momentous night for the Polish national team. Is the
I can't hear the audio playing.
Nothing's playing. Never mind.
Give me one more chance, guys. One more chance. Crap.
Never mind.
Okay, never mind. We tried something, it didn't work, but we're going to try again. Don't you worry. We are going to try again. But we're going to move on. And the next game I think that we're going to try and talk about is, let's go for, should we go France, Denmark, or Argentina, Mexico? Let's go for, which one do we think, Andy?
Let's go Argentina.
I watched both of them, but I could go Argentina, Mexico, because that was a banger of a game.
Nice. Let's do Argentina, Mexico as Messi saves the day. And Andy, what were your initial reactions from this game?
I think I was a bit disappointed in Mexico, to be honest. I thought they would give it a bit more of a game, and despite the fact they rocked up with a two up front of two. You definitely know wingers are playing as strikers is not their natural position. It's essentially what Mexico did, but in pairs. Obviously, Chucky Lozano, when we've spoken about him more than enough times on our normal weekly pods, doing what he does best for Napoli. But for some reason, he was stuck up front during this game for Mexico. And it just felt like they weren't playing to his strength. He's a lot better when he's coming off a wing, is able to drift inside and contribute to play a bit more. Whereas in this game, resorted to running the lines. I think the main improvement for Argentina was bringing back Martinez into the back line. What's going on with my camera? My camera's gone. I'll figure that out in a second. But yeah, I think with Martinez, he's a fantastic centre back for United. And I think he's honestly makes such a difference to Argentina. It was absolutely baffling he didn't start the first game. That's made a massive difference to them. And I think as well, the midfield was solid but functional. But with Messi, that was an absolute moment of magic from him. He does it a lot these days, where he spends most of the game sort of drifting around, looking for space, looking like he's not really doing anything. But even at 35, if you give him a moment, his first touch, gave him the space, and the accuracy of it is just world class. It looks like quite an easy enough finish, but from first look. But when you look at the replays and how he had to create that space and lock it in was really good. And then arguably one of the goals of the tournament from Enzo Fernandez, who was a Benfica player, has been linked with a few big clubs recently. I love those kind of goals where you just cut in and hit it. And I think with Mexico, they put a lot of effort into hassling and harrying in the first sort of half hour and the first half, and I think they just ran out of gas towards the second half of the game. And I think the other thing as well, it's an aging squad with the depth of replacements. Obviously, if based on form, you would have expected the likes of Javier Hernandez and Carlos Vela to be there, but they both have somewhat difficult relationships with the Mexican national team, which is partly contributed to the situation at the moment. It's also partly contributed to why they've got basically playing no strikers and no Raul Jimenez, to sum it up, hasn't scored an open play goal for Mexico for 3 years. And he was brought off the bench to try and change the game. So, yeah, I think it's a shame. It's a shame that the performance of the team couldn't match the passion of their fans, because they always come in huge numbers, a massive part of the World Cup. They add so much to it from an aesthetic point of view, and it's just, I think it's not a vintage generation of Mexican teams by any stretch of the imagination. I think Argentina, they recovered from that shock against Saudi Arabia, where, let's not forget, we didn't actually play that badly, to be fair.
No.
They just got unlucky, I think, to two screamers. But yeah, I think Argentina, that it's definitely worth taking really seriously, especially with some of the options that they could bring off the bench as well. I mean, they had Dybala just sat there doing nothing.
Well,
you got,
as the game went on, I was thinking Dybala's looking better and better by the minute here. They're going to have to bring him on. But they didn't have to. Messi and as you said, Andy, the legs were definitely tired. The closing down of Messi there was laboured, I think. But Messi managed to tuck it into the bottom corner. There's a great video. I think it's Mar del Plata in Argentina. It's someone videoing outside their apartment as the whole city just goes crazy as that goal goes in. Now, Adam, I have a theory that could be, depending how this tournament goes, that could be the biggest goal of Messi's career in terms of the turning point. I think without that goal, Argentina were probably heading out of the tournament.
Yeah.
That goal seems to have breathed life into that team. How big a moment do you think that was? And what do you expect Argentina to go on and do from here?
I think it was massive for Argentina. I think they totally prepared for themselves to be potentially knocked out that evening. And that was the whole point around Scaloni's kind of choice for this match, in particular around the personnel. So you had a bit more experienced heads around those kind of younger players, which I think kind of alludes to the fact that, they've not been used to this circumstance because they've been on this long unbeaten run. And then obviously to have that shock at the World Cup obviously destroys a little bit of that confidence and maybe produces a bit more self-doubt about whether your philosophy is working, for example. So I think that was massive in terms of not just Messi's career, but also Argentina. Because, I mean, if you were to say knocked out after 2 group games when you're anticipated to do better at a World Cup, especially this World Cup, which I think a lot of people have tipped them to do quite well. I mean, that would have been massive if they'd been knocked out. But in terms of going forward, I mean, even from my point of view, Poland got to face them. We are definitely not going to take this for granted. We know their weaknesses now, but we also know their strengths, and that one man, Lionel Messi, on himself. I mean, when you look at the take, I mean, that is a sign of a world-class striker. Unfortunately, that's what we've got to face. So Kamil Glik has got to have the most phenomenal match, somehow get some pace somewhere.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No. But what he's good at is facing the ball at his face. He seems to be doing this every match so far and just getting up and getting on with it. So I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. But in terms of going forward, I still expect them to progress out of the group. I think they will progress. It's going to be a question of the matchups, I think, because it feels like, for me, if they have a certain team that's got, maybe on terms of balance of, quality against them, they may well struggle, because I haven't been convinced by Argentina, but the more they win, I think they're going to get stronger. That seems to be the theme of this. So what about you?
Yeah, I think it's a team that you can see very much it's reliant on team spirit at this point. Like, the changing room was going crazy. There was apparently now Canelo is calling out Messi because he was cleaning the floor with a Mexico flag or something. Like, they were going mad. A quick little stat on Messi before we do move on. In 2006, Lionel Messi became the youngest player in World Cup history to both score and assist in the same game. This weekend, Lionel Messi becomes the oldest player in World Cup history to both score and assist in the same game, bookending his career quite beautifully. I think Yeah, you're right. I think before they got the goal, all I was seeing was Rodrigo de Paul have an absolute Hall of Shame performance. And I saw a lot of players being like, this is not good. And what kind of worries me about this Argentina team is that they might be a team of moments. Like, and if that moment doesn't arrive, maybe they just go out. And I feel like I don't know how sustainable that thing is. Kind of like Spurs, let's say, right? They need a moment to win a game. And if that moment doesn't arrive, then they run out of ideas. And I think we will see in the next game against Poland how they respond, whether this win gives them the boost that they need or whether they go in like they did to the Saudi game, in my opinion, assuming that they're going to win. So we'll see how how it affects the team and how this win kind of, how they deal with it. But yeah, impressive goal from Messi. As always, he's there to save the day. Just an unbelievable moment. And the Fernandes goal. What a goal. What a hit. Unbelievable. On the same day, France did beat Denmark 2-1 as Kylian Mbappe again makes the difference. And a little shout out for a guy who gets a lot of stick on our pod for his personality, not for his ability, but Theo Hernandez is the first player to have at least 7 goal contributions in his first 9 matches for France since Zinedine Zidane. Now,
I feel like there's a couple of players that we've roasted a bit over the past 2 months. Rabiot's another one. I mean,
Rabiot is having an absolute stormer of the season.
This is going to turn into the bloody Adrian Rabiot appreciation pod, which I never thought we'd ever say.
Not quite.
But, well, yeah, maybe not. I'm sure his mum would be on to us at some point. But no, I think, again, against Denmark, I know obviously the headlines about Mbappe, but I think Rabiot has got to the point where he's really holding that midfield together. I did think they're going to look a little bit lightweight, without Pogba, without Kante, but he sort of really upped his game a level over the past sort of few months or so. I mean, whether it's he's just showing his ability or he's just going through a bit of a purple patch, but either way, he covers the ground really, really well. And I think one thing, he always seems to be in the right position at the right time. He gets forwards effectively. He's doing like a proper box-to-box midfielder role. It's just considering such a
I have to keep reminding myself we're talking about Rabiot. We're going to have to eat so much. We're going to have to eat so much humble pie in the second half of this
especially when he bloody lifts, especially when he's like lifts a bloody trophy up in a couple of weeks' time. I mean, it's gonna it's gonna be horrendous. But no, to be fair to him, it's good. I thought Denmark. I mean, they're a bit. They're a number 9 short of being a really, really good international side. I mean, from what is quite a highly ranked team, their striking options consist of Andreas Cornelius, who couldn't really get a game. I think Aston Villa and was absolutely dreadful. Martin Braithwaite, who the less said, the better. I'm sorry, but he is absolutely woeful, and that's the striking options that they've got. Unfortunately, I think Christiansen had a bit of a difficult game as well in defence. I think
this is a theme we're seeing across the tournament. Is a lot of teams are missing that big striker. But sorry, Adam, you were going to jump in there.
Yeah, because my take on this is Denmark are the Turkey of this year. And I know Andy doesn't agree with this, but on that point that he raised, so I just want to get you two to guess on this. So Andreas Cornelius, Kasper Dolberg, Yusuf Poulsen, and Martin Braithwaite. How many goals do you think combined they scored in the qualifiers for Denmark to qualify for this World Cup? Bear in mind, they scored 30 goals, so they were ranked 3rd behind the likes of Poland. 4th. So behind Poland, England, and Netherlands in terms of goals scored.
I'm going to say too bad. I'm going to say between them 5.
That's generous. I'm going to say 3, 1 each.
It was indeed 5 goals. So that was 16% of the goals scored by strikers in 18 games collectively. And the attacking midfielder, Andreas Olsen, has scored 5 alone in that same qualification campaign. So, yeah, that's the alarming point. I think we've been given this vibes of, Denmark worked together really well. The last Euros did fantastically well. I almost get that same kind of ethics of, Turkey had the same vibes going into the last Euros and they didn't do so well. Granted, I think Denmark should do better, but it does feel like it might be like just going by the wayside right now.
Yeah, it feels like it's getting away from them. It does feel like it's getting away from them. And I think we said at the beginning that it's quite a tough group. Like they are in a pretty tough group, and but you would expect them to get a few more points, I suppose. But yeah, maybe it was just team spirit that got them through. I don't know. But next up, they've got Australia. And Australia getting their first win against Tunisia. The scenes in Melbourne looked absolutely incredible. There was not a place on earth that would have been a better night out than Melbourne on Saturday night.
I honestly had no ideas. I had honestly no idea the Aussies were that pumped for the World Cup. They just, I don't know, the Aussies just
they absolutely love it.
Yeah.
They do absolutely love it. But I do want to quickly, before we move on to the next game, say Theo and Mbappe is possibly the best left side at this tournament. Yeah. Sorry, that's the dog. The dog agrees. The absolute pace and directness down that left-hand side. I'm going to go to you, Andy. Do you think anybody can deal with that? Theo Hernandez and Mbappe on the same team, on the same wing? It doesn't seem fair.
I think you could deal with them for a certain amount of time, but you need reinforcements. What Denmark were doing in the first half worked. They had two people on them at all times, and they didn't give them a moment's peace. But the problem with that is when you've got people with the engine and the speed of Hernandez and Mbappe, you have to rotate the personnel there. There's not many players that can go toe-to-toe with Mbappe for 90 minutes. And I think, maybe with England's fullbacks, maybe we've perhaps got the option of that, perhaps. But you have to sort of keep changing it, because as the game wears on, they only need one or two times to get away from you, and it'll cost you. And I think that's what happened in that game. They just kept going the same route over and over again and couldn't keep up. And I think in terms of a left-sided partnership, it's definitely probably the best in the World Cup. And even on the right, I think Dembele gets a lot of bad rep because he's mostly injured, terrible attitude. But he's started to get over his injury problems by the looks of it, and he played really, really well.
He's been in good form for Barcelona as well. I think he's really coming into his own this season. It's great to see, because I think he was labelled and he was a flop for a while, right? It seems like we're starting to see Dortmund Dembele again, which is great to see. Super exciting. But we are going to move on, and we're going to go to the next game. And to lead us into this, we're going to go Morocco run riot, not just on the pitch, but it turns out in the centre of Bruges as well. But to start off, we are going to get thoughts from friend of the show, Basri, on an incredible performance and result for the Moroccans.
Hello, everyone. I really can't describe properly how happy we are here in Morocco. We are really happy and proud. We are really proud of this team. We made it through the 4th point, and we won against a team in the caliber of Belgium, which is the 2nd best team in the FIFA ranking. So we are really happy and proud of everyone, of the whole performance, of our keeper, Mohamdi, of our defense, of our midfielders and our attack. We are really happy and proud. Everyone here are we're looking forward to see how our team perform against the likes of Croatia or Belgium. We did well in the first game. We made 0-0 against a team with Modric, Kovacic and many stars. And in the second game, it was really important to have a point. But in the game, we were seeing that our team was a little bit better than Belgium. Forget about Belgium in papers. I'm talking about the game. In like the 43 minutes, it was clear that if we make it go forward, we're going to win the game. So, Walid El-Regragui, our coach, our Moroccan coach, our national coach, he was really brave. So, he played forward. So, he made some changes in the lineup in the second half, and we made 2 goals. The first one by Saberi, and the second one by Abu Khlal. Both of them are only played for the second half. So, it was a joyful night. No one sleeps here in Morocco. Not only in Morocco, but even in Europe, even in Belgium. We know that the Moroccan diaspora in Belgium are are like really, we can say like 500,000 of Moroccans there in Belgium. So they were happy there, happiness everywhere. Now everyone is happy and joyful, but everyone now is looking forward for this next game, the third game against Canada, which is a hard game, a difficult game against a team that it's already eliminated, but that's how difficult it is.
Nice, and that is, I love Basri, thank you for your voice note, but I love how everybody's happy. I'm not sure if the Belgian officials are happy at the moment, but everyone in Morocco is delighted. And I'm going to start with you, Adam. There was two players that we think, or I think, maybe you agree with me, stood out in this performance, but Southampton legend, and I remember he had glimpses in the Premier League where he scored some incredible goals. I think we saw it at the weekend in Boufal, and the player that Chelsea thought they were getting in Hakim Ziyech in this game. Just how much did they impress you? Morocco were unbelievable in this game.
Yeah, impressive. And I think it goes down to his original interview with you, where he said it's all about the wing play. It's all about the wing play. They do the creation, they do the movement for the team. And you could see that, especially Ziyech, he was weaving in, contributing, doing the one touches. I think the thing that I found was quite clever was they had a game plan, which was quite obvious that they were attacking set plays and in particular going for near posts or just areas where Courtois would struggle. And for whatever reason, Belgium seems to struggle with that. They just seem to struggle to do anything in this match in particular. But I think that goes to show you how well set up they were. They were definitely, I feel like, worthy winners in this match because Belgium weren't there. I just don't know. And I think we'll get the thoughts shortly. But I mean, this Belgium side are very disappointing. And is that down to Martinez or is that down to the players? But ultimately, it feels like it's a combined effort here.
Yeah, before we do get onto Belgium, I wanted to kind of give the Morocco their plaudits. You're right. On the wing, that was exactly how they played the game. I thought Amrabat in midfield was unbelievable. He's a great player for Fiorentina, and we just saw him so solid, like dictating the play, was able to keep that midfield. And it was a midfield in Belgium that was very, very unpredictable. I think Onana there's a lot of promise there, but he needs polishing. And Witsel, it's not the Witsel of 5 years ago. But I think Amrabat really was dominating that midfield. And we need to have a really massive credit to Munir in goal, who came in at the very last second, literally ran in just in time to take the team photo and then started in the game. And managed to make some big saves throughout the game, was completely steadfast, was reliable, did his job perfectly. And what I really loved was the way the manager handed over the job to him and was just there was no fuss. He just walked up and went, right, you're in, go on. And he was like, you've got it, don't worry, you're fine, go play. And it was there wasn't this, it wasn't made to be this huge thing. He just sent him on, right, you know what to do, I trust you completely, go. And he was incredible. I thought Morocco, this is only their third ever World Cup win, right? I think it's just momentous, huge result. But we're going to talk about Belgium. And Andy, I'm going to get your thoughts on Belgium after we hear from another friend of the show, Sasha Tavolieri.
When I saw the Belgium, I was a bit afraid because I was feeling a bit something doesn't went as usual, and that was a big problem, So on what went wrong, I can only tell you that the collective perception of this team is not good, and that's something really obvious because we feel like these people doesn't have hunger, and this is something that really is complaining. It's a big problem. And everyone is complaining about this in Belgium because we see things don't go forward and we don't know how to make it happen. And that is a problem. We are supposed to have a coach who answer to all these questions, but unfortunately, it's a bit of improvisation. What he did against Morocco doesn't convene to someone here, and it was a big problem. And yes, of course, when you speak about KDB, Kevin De Bruyne, and what he says, it's really, significant of the actual behavior of the team and the situation where the Belgium is posed for the moment. We are waiting for him to be the number one, to be our magical player, impact player, but when he is with Belgium, obviously he is not shining, so he just stay here, make one or two pass, but doesn't try to be the significant player everyone wants him to be. So it's really disappointing when I.
So, Andy, as Sasha said, there's a lot to cover there, right? There's KDB's comments, which we're definitely going to get onto. And he said it's how the team have performed, the effort that they put in, and the drive to go forward. How much of a mess are this Belgium team in? It has been woeful. What do you think, Andy?
It has. It doesn't seem like a particularly united dressing room either. With a few of the comments that have been put there together, and I think there's a feeling for me. There's a few players that are on their base of reputation only, as opposed to everything there. I mean, Eden Hazard has not been fit enough to get a run of games together for Real Madrid, and yet a bit like with Gareth Bale over in for Wales, he's started games left, right, and centre, and this is not the Hazard we saw at Chelsea. I mean, I shouldn't laugh, but I think I do find his downfall quite funny because he was so arrogant. Like he was so, oh, I'm too good for Chelsea. Chelsea are beneath me. You know, he had legendary status there as well, and the fans absolutely adored him with good reason, to be fair. And you know, he kind of cooked all of that because he thought he was too good for it, and you know, he hasn't. The impression you get, although he's had a lot of injuries, he doesn't seem to have helped himself in terms of getting back fit. Like he seems to be always overweight after an injury spell. You know, it takes him a long time to get back up to fitness. And although I'm not, you know, a fitness expert, that he seems to take longer to get back to fitness than other players. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I think it kind of shows an attitude that we can see throughout the squad, because I think there's been a lot of players, and I'm going to get onto Kevin De Bruyne because he's really he's annoyed me really, because I think I've genuinely taken it a little bit personally. Just a guy so talented has just absolutely phoned it in, and just before the game even kicked off has just completely undermined his team and his manager. So the comments that he made were, someone asked him, can you win the World Cup? He said, no chance, we're too old. Now, on one hand, he has a very good point. If you looked at that Belgium team and someone said, what year is it? You could have said any year between now and 2016, really. You could have been like, 2018, 2020, no, 2015. Like, the team has not changed. So I think De Bruyne definitely has a point, right? And I think we've talked about it with Wales. Maybe the manager did need to make more changes. He has brought in Onana, and he's tried to bring in, maybe that's the one player that he's brought in that's new, I'm not sure, but maybe he should have tried a bit more. Players like Trossard, who's had an unbelievable season for Brighton. I would have him starting over Hazard every day of the week, because as Andy said, Hazard has not been playing. But how much of it, like Kevin De Bruyne, Adam, how disappointed have you been by his performance? I know he can't win the game single-handedly, but he can at least run, and he can at least drive his teammates to do more. He's just looked like he's just phoning it in.
Yeah, certainly. He could inspire the team to do almost like what Steven Gerrard did for Liverpool, like kind of get your sleeves up. Let's like actually get involved in this match, because at the moment we're like, 20 minutes away from losing this match, and you didn't get a sense of urgency. I appreciate he's more of the creator, so therefore he's the passer, he's the one that creates the opportunities. Whether that's a Martinez thing as well, maybe he's been told strict instructions, should I say, to make sure that he's doing a specific role. But that said, I mean, there's got to be a point.
As if Martinez is that detailed.
Well, yeah, exactly. But if we give it his due, I still think you break ranks. You've got to do something that kind of, enjoys yourself to the fan base, because I think even the Belgian fan base are pissed off with the way they're turning up for this tournament. All this promise for the years, and they're not going to have anything to their name apart from a third place finish at 2018, and that went down like a.
I mean, they've burnt a few cars in Brussels, so I suspect they've taken it well.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the Moroccans and the Belgians are just joining in now. They're just out fucking like this is shit. Yeah, I don't know. I think it does seem like the end of an era, and we're going to talk about Martinez now. The scholars of the future are going to study why Martinez was left in charge of a team this good, and they will still not be able to figure it out. But on the same hand, who is a manager that would have I can't think of another manager who's bigger or better that's going to take that job. It's not like they could go out and just go right, Ancelotti or right, Mourinho or whatever. Is he the best they could get? I don't even know if there's an answer to this. I'm not expecting.
There's got to be better. I mean, they could do worse, and I'm going to stick this out there now. They could do worse than giving it to Vincent Kompany.
Yeah. I honestly think that would have been
you would have the respect of the players. Mm-hmm. He had a bit of an iffy start at Anderlecht where he was player manager, which is a very, very 90s job role, isn't it? Player manager,
I love it.
Which didn't really work for him, but he's done a really good job at Burnley. I know it seems a little bit soon, but I think he'd be quite good for that. He's a young manager as well, learning the game, and I think he would get more out of those players. I think, Martinez could have done things to change the complexion of the game. Like if you wanted to get a bit more control, drop De Bruyne a bit deeper. He could play a deeper role. We've seen him do it for Man City. Same with Tielemans as well. Like he's not the most mobile, but he's certainly more mobile than Axel Witsel is at the moment. And for me, a better player. And, Michy Batshuayi up front. I mean, really,
it is. But then you look at it, and it's a bit mad. The guy. I don't
understand. I don't understand. I can't even remember when Michy Batshuayi last scored a goal.
Probably in Turkey, I imagine. It would be Besiktas, probably.
Yeah.
But while Andy looks that up. Go on.
Yeah, he's okay. I'll eat my words. In Turkey, he's actually had quite a prolific season. Damn. I'm like shit. Yeah. Well, when he finished at Crystal Palace, he got obviously 2 goals in 18 appearances in his last season at Crystal Palace, and then he's got obviously 14 in 33 for Besiktas, and then Fenerbahce 5 in 7. Okay, so to be fair, he's turned it round, but. Again, I think when you've got the likes of Dries Mertens on the bench, even the half-fit Lukaku would have arguably been more effective, to be honest. So
yeah, I think it just again another team that needs that striker, another team that needs that. Well, it needs a lot of things.
I think Courtois dropped a bit of a ball as well for the first Morocco goal. He looked like he left too much space.
Isn't that his weakness? That's his weakness, isn't it? He doesn't seem to. Spread himself very well sometimes.
How nobody thought about the near post. But Adam, sorry, you were going to say something.
All I was going to say in terms of managers they could have gone for, Philippe Clement, who is currently at Monaco. Obviously done some really good stuff in the Belgian league. Obviously, I feel like an up-and-coming coach wouldn't have done them any harm. And he would have got that philosophy across as well. And maybe even experimented with a lot of the younger players.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick a name out there as well. Hervé Renard.
Oof. I tell you what, he's got to be... Yeah.
He'll be there, though.
Speaks a lingo. That's a good start.
Yeah.
And, he's managed obviously in nearby France. He's got a cracking record at international level.
He's won the AFCON with 2 different teams.
He's won it with, I think it was Uganda, wasn't it?
Zambia and Ivory Coast.
Sorry.
Zambia.
Zambia and Ivory Coast. He's won the AFCON with. I think a European international job will probably be the next step for him, to be honest.
Oh, I'd love to see Big Harv in Europe. Andy, I love it. He's such a handsome man, and that white shirt, you cannot get enough of it. He must have the best ironing skills in the world.
How does he not sweat as well? He doesn't seem to sweat.
I know.
It's flawless. Absolutely
Prince Andrew would be jealous.
But we do need to move on from Morocco versus Belgium and the bin fire that is Belgium. They have now got Canada coming up. And I don't see Belgium winning that game. I honestly don't see it happening. But we are going to go over to Croatia versus Canada. And before we do that, we're going to hear from friend of the show, Lovra. Do we have it?
No, I don't think we do.
Oh, we don't. Never mind. We are going to go straight to Croatia versus Canada. And we're going to start with, I want to get a bit of beef going. We're going to start an online war between KDB versus Modric. Now, never have I seen in back-to-back games two performances more apart, more like distant than these two. And these two players that are supposed to kind of hold the same role, right? A player that dictates the midfield, ties everything together, wins the ball back, drives the team forward, is the hub of the team. KDB is sent in two absolute disgraces of a performance, and Modric at the age of 37 has been part of, I think, still the best midfield in world football, which is Modric, Brozovic, and Kovacic. They were absolutely monstrous against Canada. They got off to a very rough start, but before we get onto the game, I want to say, who is going to have the biggest legacy in football once they retire? My hat is firmly in the Modric camp. Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what he's done in that time at Real Madrid, you kind of think, yeah, he wasted all those years at Spurs winning nothing. He could have been winning more. But yeah, I'm glad he actually turned around his career at Real Madrid, because there was that brief period where he felt like he was getting vilified, and a lot of the Real Madrid fans weren't understanding his value. And I think that was, to be fair, there was a period of Spurs fans where they felt the same, but then they got won over by his performances. So
that also happens a lot of Real. They doubt the value of Ronaldo. Like they love doubting the value.
Benzema was another one as well.
Yeah, exactly. They're never bloody happy. Andy, which camp are you? KDB versus Modric?
Probably good Modric. I mean, maybe I'm a little bit biased in that one. I mean, don't get me wrong, KDB is a fantastic player, but I think in terms of what Modric contributes, I can't see KDB doing what Modric is at 37 years old. I think that's the best way I could put it. He's as good as he was 10 years ago. And what surprises me about Modric, he's still got a really good turn of pace over his first 5 or 10 yards to get away from people. Even at 37, he can still get up and down the pitch really, really well. He's got a great engine on him, as well as obviously his clear, footballing brain. I think he's just an absolute dream to watch.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was genuinely beautiful to watch. Time does not exist in Croatia, apparently, because none of that team have aged in the slightest. And I think despite a rocky start and an unbelievable start, I was so happy that Canada got their moment. I was so happy that it was Alphonso Davies who got it. It was a fantastic header. It was an even better ball into the box. But Croatia just turned up. And I think their manager may have made a mistake. I think his bark was louder than was rougher than his bite. Is that the thing?
Yeah.
I think if you're coming up against finalists, I know, and I think it was a tricky question, right? Because they've said, what have you just said to the players? And he said what he's just said to the players. Now, I do not think he's the only manager in the world who's turned around to his players and gone, next week, we fuck them up, right? He's not the first manager to do that.
It's typical Sunday League, isn't it? It's like, doesn't matter who you're up against. You literally turn around and go, right, into these bastards and get them. And that, I think he's just said it. He's just said the quiet bit out loud that we're not meant to hear.
This is it. I think he's shown a bit of naivety, and he said it to the cameras, and he's given a terrifying team even extra ammunition to go out and batter him. And I think the second they went 1-0 up, they just woke up and they were pissed off. And Kramaric with an incredible goal. The Lewa finish. I'm a big fan of this Lewa guy. He's scored 43 goals in a season and a half in Croatia. I think he could be a player that gets a big move off the back of this tournament. I thought he was really impressive up front. I think Kramaric not being the main focus and not being the main striker really helped him. It gave him a bit more freedom. He was able to kind of attack the space a bit more. Lewa was very much the focus. Love that guy. Great finish. But just how clinical Croatia were. I think they are a team that could still be a huge threat in this competition. I thought they were kind of done. I thought 2018 was their run. Like, oh, you got there. Well done. You've done your bit. You've got your kind of your crowning performance.
Yeah.
But I think they could push again. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, I think when you look at the midfield as well, so we haven't mentioned Kovacic, who has been superb in this particular match, but just generally, he seems to be the player that tries to create a lot of opportunities. Brozovic, who we know from Inter Milan, again, someone that you don't want to be facing against. And I think between the three of them, they seem to have a really most balanced midfield because they've got creativity, they've got fight, they've got grit. They can go for the ball. The thing is as well, pressing wise, like despite the age, they press the opposition so harshly that they win back the ball anyway. And then they cause the opposition more trouble. So I think when you've got that really helps out the attackers, but also the defensive line as well. So, I mean, at no point against Canada did I feel like Croatia was stretched. I felt like they were just all the time on top of it, controlling it. And yes, maybe for that last goal, it was fortuitous in the sense that the Canadian defender, I've forgotten his name now, but
Miller.
He obviously got dispatched quite easily.
Poor lad had a stinker in the last 20 minutes.
I think those players got really tired, and I think I want to talk a little bit about Canada's style as well, because Canada are everything I want from an underdog. They are. There is not a move they do that isn't about scoring a goal. There's nothing they do that isn't about getting forward, try and get an attack. They do not try and retain possession. They do not try and hold it, keep it safe for 5 minutes. It is just all out fucking war, and that's why they got knackered. Obviously, it's not sustainable against teams where the teams they have to qualify against. It's a bit more. They can blow teams away in the first 20 minutes, and then you can sit back. When you're up against better quality opposition, if that goal doesn't come in the first 10, 20 minutes, then you're kind of in trouble. Even when Canada got the 1, I thought if you don't get a 2 here, you are gonna lose this game. They just scored 2 early, but I love everything about their team. I love Alphonso Davies. I think I've realized again how great a player he is. I don't watch that much Bundesliga. I only really see him in the Champions League. He is incredible. The fact he can almost play every position. He pops up in every position. He goes from left back to left wing to centre mid to centre forward. He's fucking everywhere. I do feel like, though, he needs to realize, and maybe this will come with a bit of maturity, that being the best player doesn't mean you have to do everything. I feel like there was at times when he was trying to just do everything on the pitch, when he could just give the ball to someone else and kind of get that going. I think it's something that it must be difficult when you are the main focal point of a team and so clearly better than everybody else. It must be like, oh my God, fine, I'll just do it. But I think he does need to realize that there are some good players in that squad that he can pass the ball to and do other things. This isn't to kind of slag him off. I just thought Alfonso chill a little bit. Like there's some players like Buchanan, who is unpredictable, but very, very exciting player. I thought Estacrio in midfield, very tidy midfielder, really capable of kind of press resistant, great at getting those quick balls out, good passing range, really good players in that squad throughout. I was really impressed. Andy, what have you thought of Canada? I know they've not won a game yet, but I feel like they've won a few hearts, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think they've come in with the underdogs, and I think they play football, the sort of football that you can only really play when there's no real expectation to do anything. I think they've tried to maximise the talents that they've got in terms of Jonathan Davies, Alphonso Davies, tried to maximise their talents and the outlet that they give, certainly on the counter-attack, and they've just gone for it. I just think by leaving only 2 in midfield, I think they've left themselves woefully short, especially when you've got a 39-year-old Atiba Hutchison sitting in your centre midfield against that Croatia midfield 3. I don't think that was perhaps wise. They could have maybe stick David up front, taken Larin off, and put a midfielder in, but to try and stem the flow a little bit. But no, to be fair, you can't argue against their approach. And I think with Alphonso Davies, he reminds me a little bit of David Alaba in some ways. That he played left back for Bayern most of the time, but when he rocked up for Austria, he played his centre mid, attacking mid, and things like that. And I think in the defence of Alphonso Davies, he's been expected to do the same thing, play completely different roles for his country than he does his club, by virtue of just being the best player by an absolute country mile. So maybe you can forgive a little bit of naivety from that point of view. And I think you're right. As he gets a little bit older, he's only 22 or something like that. Still,
It's still crazy young.
Yeah.
So young.
I think his best years are still ahead of him. Certainly.
He made his debut for Canada at 16, and he had 3 goals before he turned 17. It's absolutely insane how good he's been. Absolutely love him as a player. Love that he's got Canada's first ever World Cup goal. Absolutely beautiful. The Canadian journalist who said in front of, I think, the Canadian women's captain on TV that goal was the greatest moment in Canadian sports history. I bet he's feeling pretty foolish at the minute.
Oh, yeah.
This morning he would have woken up like, did I really say that? But it was a great moment for Canada. I'm glad they got their goal. But we do need to move on because we are running very quickly at a time. And we need to also talk about Spain versus Germany. I think the highest quality game we've seen so far. I think it had a kind of Champions League feel to it, I felt. It felt like a really big game. But quickly, we're going to get the thoughts of Germany from friend of the show, Adam Kahn.
2 match days are now gone for Germany at the World Cup, and things are looking a bit more optimistic after the Spain fixture. A 1-1 draw against a very, very strong Spanish side sees them in contention in the last fixture to go through to the knockout stages. It's not all in their hands, but should Spain beat Japan and Germany beat Costa Rica, then they will be following the Spanish into the last stages. And in general, it was a very good fixture, you'd have to say, from a neutral perspective, probably the most entertaining encounter we've had at the World Cup so far. Though there was only 2 goals, there was a lot of chances. The Spain showed some of their exciting attacking football and great possession passages. And Germany really sparked into life following some 70th minute changes. And it's something that Germany has lacked throughout a lot of this tournament, bringing on a player like Niklas Füllkrug, bringing on Leroy Sané after his knee injury, and both of those players really enlivened the attacking game. We saw that Germany, in the form of Füllkrug, finally had a focal number 9, who they could use as an outlet in possession to bypass a very high Spanish press. And Sané, alongside Musiala, really showed a lot of energy, showed a lot of attacking initiative. Although not everything worked, he always looked capable of causing danger. And yeah, it's a player Germany will be hoping to have fully fit for that last match against Costa Rica, and hopefully having the starting lineup. But that meant Füllkrug, I think he deserves the biggest mention. It's just such an exciting story to see what he has done at this World Cup. Was a player who 12 months ago started the season for Werder Bremen in the second Bundesliga and failed to score a single goal in 10 matches. And of course, it's the second Bundesliga, the second tier of German football. And now, after some sparkling form in the top flight in Werder Bremen's Bundesliga return, he's in the German national team and scoring the deciding goal to keep their World Cup hopes alive. So yeah, it's just so exciting to see these stories come out of the World Cup, where you see previous unknown players really take center stage. And though he's still not necessarily the number 9 who will go down like the lights of Miroslav Klose or some of the other great number 9s in German history, he's making himself so useful for this national team right now. And it's hard not to see how he doesn't start in that final game against Costa Rica on Thursday.
Nice. And that was Adam. Thanks, Adam Kahn. We got a lot of Adams in the house. Thanks for coming on to the show. Thanks for sending us your voice note. But we need to start with Füllkrug, right? This is the story of the game. Unbelievable. I love that they announced his signing by just a picture of his teeth, because he's got barely any teeth in his mouth when he was at Werder Bremen. He looks like what you expect a second division striker to look like. Adam, what did you make of Germany, and what did you make of Füllkrug himself?
I'll start off with Germany then. It was quite tense. I felt like Germany didn't seem to settle very well. I think that was by the virtue of Spain's press. I think, Spain's press was constant for about the best part of an hour. And as soon as Spain scored that goal from Morata, I felt like the dynamic had to change. It was like, we are now 20 minutes away from exiting this competition, and Hansi Flick just had to roll the dice and just put on some substitution. I'm surprised we haven't seen as much of Leroy Sané as we have up until this point, but I think the big thing that Germany fans have been crying out for is a number 9. They still are fearful about this position right now, because they don't feel like they've got that right now. And Füllkrug, I mean, fair play to him. I was looking up his stats. As probably everyone else was, because they didn't know, hadn't heard of him. But the fascinating thing was, like 2 seasons ago, he was playing with Hannover 96 in the Bundesliga as well. So, you know, these things do happen. These dreams do happen even at a late age. And I think the best story that I heard was that he had a training incident where he had the player's tooth in his forehead. So that was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. That kind of shows you the strength of this guy, but well taken goal as well, you have to say. And I think
he
that
absolutely
almost gives them,
dispatched it.
you have to say that kind of gives them a bit more hope around maybe they should be playing this guy a bit more regularly, because I feel like as soon as he came on, he was more of a threat than they had for the duration of that match. So fair play to Hansi Flick for having the balls to try something different, because I think he's been criticised for trying to have too many Bayern Munich players that aren't performing. So fair play to them.
I do have to also shout out 2 players that really stood out to me. Goretzka was absolutely unbelievable, an absolute wall. My favourite moment was when he took out Busquets. Unbelievable. And also Jamal Musiala. Chelsea, do you even look at your youth players? How are you letting him leave for £200,000? It is criminal. He is going to be like Ballon d'Or winner in the future, that guy. He is unbelievable.
In fact, England have let him go as well. Like...
That is going to hurt. That's going to come back and bite us at some point. You know he's going to score a winning penalty against us at some point. It's just bound to happen. But, Andy, before we get your thoughts on Spain, we're going to very quickly go to Andes Iturralde for his thoughts on a decent Spanish performance.
The Spain-Germany game was very, very interesting. The 1-1 draw, I think, was very interesting because it was the first legitimately great, legitimately elite game at the World Cup between 2 teams that could pass off as 2 club football teams, not just national teams. And I think both teams will left that game with a very pretty good positive sense about themselves, because I think Germany is much more against the ropes, but they put in a very good performance, got a crucial draw at the crucial point against Spain. And from the Spanish perspective, it's interesting, and in the sports press in Spain, opinion can be a little bit divided, because it can be the debate can be a little bit corrupted because of the personal feelings big parts of the press have towards Luis Enrique. But I think overall the sense is that they smashed Costa Rica. They did not falter against Germany. They were better than Germany through big parts of that game, through large phases of the game. I think Spain were the better team, played very good football, are super well organized offensively and defensively, and I think that very much showed. There was many points where they just kind of didn't quite keep up the performance from the start to the end of the game, but I think Spain did really well. And looking forward, and kind of with this good momentum, I think it just from now on, just beat everyone you can. Not this nonsense of, oh, we'll tie with Japan, Germany will get ahead of us, we'll finish second, we'll avoid Brazil. I think Spain has to go forward, has to go and beat Japan. They're much better than Japan, and from then on out, just keep going, go to the 8th finals, the last 16, so to speak. And from there, just go head to head with Brazil and see what happens. I think Spain have started really well and are going to do very well. Brazil might be too much of a tough task, but I think the Spanish team is really, really, really good.
Nice. Thank you, Ander. And I think he has raised a point that they're going to take on Brazil, but I think I've massively underrated this Spain team. I think I've come into this thinking there's no big names. It's not the team from 2010. But they are looking absolutely incredible. Andy, what have been your thoughts on Spain, and what did you make of their performance last night?
Yeah, I think we were all sat there in the preview thinking that Spain weren't really all that, to be perfectly honest. I find it funny that both Spain and Germany have gone, now we don't need strikers, we're too cool for that. And then both of them have gone, actually, we really, really need a striker. And they've both come and made a difference. But yeah, Morata, we say it all the time, he's got great ability. He's just never showed it on a consistent basis. the goal he scored against Germany, you think he'd be doing that. He does that week in, week out with that kind of finish.
It was a confident finish, right? It was
very,
a really
very
confident
finish. I think I sent the screenshot last night where one of my mates in my group chat went, "Oh, imagine bringing on Morata when you need a goal." Literally 5 minutes later, he slots one in. But I think Spain's style of football, which is very, very possession heavy, I think it suits this World Cup. Because there's not really much of a high press game going on because of a multitude of reasons at the moment. One, I think it was Marta. I think one of the Guardian columnists was saying that to have an effective pressing team requires a lot of time with your players and endless drills, which you can't really do in these World Cup and in these conditions without having a few warm-up matches. So I think teams like Spain, who are very, very adept at keeping the ball, are benefiting hugely. I think Busquets, I think despite his advancing years, he's still a quality act. I did think it was a little bit weird starting Rodri at centre back. But he's done it. He's done it before for City, and I think in terms of how they build from the back, I think works well for them. But I do think he would need to go into midfield and add a bit more solidarity, certainly at the later stages. But in Gavi and Pedri, they sound like Football Manager regen names, those two, but they're very much real, and they're very, very much going to be the centre point of that Spain team for the next 10, 15 years. I think Luis Enrique's done really, really well at that. He's got a few players, with the likes of Alejandro Balde of the Barcelona left back, who's only made a handful of appearances, but he's like 19 years old. He's got a lot of years ahead of him. Ansu Fati, who probably would have had more of an impact for Spain if it wasn't for the horrible injuries that he's had. And I think he's built a team that is very much sort of in his own image. So I think
so I think he's like the best manager at this tournament.
100%. I mean, he won the European. He won, was it the double or treble with Barcelona?
Champions League and League.
Yeah, he's 100% the best manager in the tournament in terms of what he's achieved in the game. Certainly.
And I think we're seeing it, and I think it's just I think I've just massively underestimated this Spain team, and I've sat and watched them twice now and been like, oh crap, these guys could actually be contenders. They look really, really good. And as you kind of touched upon, the fact they've managed to like regen Xavi and Iniesta in the space of like 5 years is genuinely like very, very impressive. Usually it takes like 10, 15 years. They've done it in like 5 years. So fair play, Spain. But yeah, Adam, what have you made of Spain at this tournament? And do you think they are indeed contenders?
Yeah, I completely see them being contenders. I think they will go very far. I mean, it was very interesting that I think Pedri had a quieter game, and I think that was maybe the kind of wake up moments, in terms of he's going to be facing this kind of quality a bit more regularly as they go into these kind of stages. So I think this is going to be the growing of players like Pedri and Gavi, where they're probably more relied upon to create stuff for the Spanish team. But that said, great understanding within that kind of midfield because they've got Busquets right next to them as well. So that helps them out. So they've got the experience plus the youth, the creativity. And I think that's the focal point for Spain, really, when you think about how they're going to play it out, because they have got options off the bench. I still worry about the defense because I feel when you look at the age group, I know we've got Jordi Alba still at left back. We've got Cesar Azpilicueta, even. But even in centre back, when you look at Eric Garcia as a backup centre back, I'm not convinced that's the quality that will take them all away. But I think they will get to at least quarterfinal, semi-final stages, definitely.
Very nice. There's a lot to be excited about with Spain. Just beautiful to watch. Beautiful to watch. I also worry about the goalkeeper. There was a moment where he passed it straight to one of the German players and then pulled off an amazing save. And I was like, there's Unai Simon in 1 second. That is what you're going to get with him. But he made a decent save. I do worry about him at times. But we do also very quickly, there's a lot to cover, guys. So much to cover. We need to actually talk about today. And at last, the chaos is here. We've waited long enough, but finally we had 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 goals in the first 2 games today. Who wants to take the Cameroon versus Serbia goal fest. Who's going to take us through that one?
Yeah, I can take you through it. So I think this was unexpected, to be fair. Serbia looked on in terms of trying to cement this game. As soon as they scored the third goal, it looked like there was just going to be galore of goals from Serbia. Unfortunately, they've got a poor defense, it has to be said. They just let in a number of times the Cameroonian attacks, and Choupo-Moting at least scores at this tournament as well. So this is where it starts for him as well. But yeah, I feel like Serbia are going to be kicking themselves, because when they're in the lead 3-1 in terms of the goal score line, you're kind of expecting them to maybe shut up shop, really make sure that they win this game. And Mitrovic, even when it was 3-3, he had numerous chances. He could have scored a brace, but the inspired goalkeeping of Apase seemed to just be enough for Cameroon on the day. And it gives Cameroon some hope going forward. I mean, it goes down to the last game, and I think Serbia, when they go in for reflection, they'll go, we have this amount of decent quality players, but we don't seem to be progressing out of this group stage. And I think our friend Marco is not going to be happy. I mean, I'd be very interested to get a voice note off him as well.
I am working on that one definitely for Thursday. I think I'll be in touch with him for that. But we need to also very, very quickly touch on the Cameroonian side. Incredible goal from Abubakar. He called out Salah at the AFCON and said, he doesn't impress me, I'm better than him. That finish was absolutely outrageous. And we need to talk about Anana as well. Fell out with the manager, fell out with Rigobert Song, has now been sent home over tactical differences. Apparently, he refused to stop using his feet. Rigobert Song wanted him to be more traditional. It's all kicked off, and he's gone home. So now, as you said, Apase has been in goal. He conceded 3. Maybe they'll be on the phone to Onana saying, come back. I'm not sure. But absolute chaos of a game. And Andy, do you want to take us through your South Korea 2, Ghana 3, Kudus arriving? We've seen him in the Champions League, but there he is. 2 great goals.
Yeah, it was just absolute carnage. I mean, I was looking at the early fixtures thinking, oh, this might be a little bit boring, but no, I think Kudus, he's got a good rep at Ajax, but I think he's certainly showing himself to be a lot better than we even thought he was. And I think this game, I mean, Ghana had 3 shots on target and scored with all 3 of them. It feels like I'm playing Football Manager again. No, they've. I think Ghana have shown this tournament. They're very gritty, very determined. They can really dig in, and I feel like they've got a very united squad as well. Which, maybe compared to some of the other teams around them, like Cameroon, for instance, for Publius Nana, like they seem to have a reasonably settled lineup from that point of view. I mean, there's arguments to whether Jordan Ayew should still be starting games for Ghana in 2022, but to be fair, Andre Jordan, they've really turned it up for Ghana.
Yeah. And he had a great. I think it was Jordan got a great assist today. I think it was Jordan, right? Got one of the assists.
Yeah, he was everywhere. I think South Korea themselves, I think they were a bit disappointing. I think Hyun-Min Son had quite a disappointing game, to be honest. I think maybe it's the pressure of being expected to do everything, and the fact that, especially at international level, he's going to get doubled on every single time, and maybe that meant he wasn't as effective as he would have liked. From that point of view, but obviously,
you'd think he'd be used to being the only plan A at this point, because it's what he gets at his club.
Well, I suppose at least at Spurs, he's got better some support of Perisic and Kane and Bentancur and things like that. So there is sort of support there, but I suppose generally speaking, he hasn't been on fire for a lot of this season, and maybe he's a little bit undercooked going into this World Cup because he hasn't really shown up yet. But Chogi Sung, a couple of goals in 3 minutes, very proper sort of poacher finishes with those ones as well. And I felt Son did have a chance where he was in the right position, and the ball was just a bit of pinball in the penalty box, and he just stood there and then had all the time in the world just to get a really bad connection on the shot. And I felt like the Son of maybe a year ago or even 6 months ago probably would have done a bit better from that scenario. So Yeah, I think Ghana stuck to their plan really, really well. They were effective, going forward in attack, and I think that last goal. I don't think the South Korean defense will look too kindly on that one. Especially there was. I mean, it was probably like Sunday League almost, where you stick your leg out, you're off balance, it goes on the air, and then there's a Ghana player like knocking it behind.
Everything that could go wrong did go wrong for that one, I think. But Ghana get the massive win, huge win. And now in the group, that puts them second behind Portugal, who got a 1-0 win. Bruno Fernandes.
2-0 in the end.
2-0 in the end.
Sorry, yeah, Bruno Fernandes got a goal.
Bruno Fernandes getting both.
I mean, Ronaldo did his best to steal the first one and celebrated like he did. And I was sat there watching the replay going, he hasn't touched that. My girlfriend was like, I'm pretty sure he has. I was like, no, he hasn't. And then 10 minutes later, they've given it to... You know what I find funny, right? I know for a fact that despite the fact Portugal won, Cristiano Ronaldo is going to be absolutely fuming like a child. Number one, he's tried to steal somebody else's goal with FIFA and not having it. Number two, he's gone off the pitch to be substituted. Portugal have got a penalty. He's not there to take it to top of his goal tally. And Bruno Fernandes has got a second goal and taking the glory. And there's a little part of me which just finds that utterly hilarious. And like,
good. The fact he'll be going to bed a little bit annoyed cheers me up.
It cheers me up immensely as well, especially because it's not a Manchester United problem anymore. I'm just like, this is fantastic.
Elsewhere, we have another Manchester United player very quickly. Just going to literally mention the scoring goal scorer. Brazil 1, Switzerland 0. Casemiro with an absolutely filthy outside of the foot finish. Unbelievable. He's a player that I'm like, he's very different in a Brazil shirt. He's just very different in a Brazil shirt. But if United can get that kind of Casemiro, because he was unbelievable in the first game as well, it could be a hell of a signing for United.
I think it's just fitness. I think it just took him a while. It just took him a while to get a bit of fitness when he first came to Manchester United.
New scene.
And to be fair, like in the weeks leading up to the World Cup, before he picked up a bit of an unfortunate injury, he was starting to play really, really well. He got his first goal against Chelsea, and I think, yeah, you're right. If he brings that form back to Manchester, I'll be absolutely delighted. I still forget someone as good as Casemiro actually plays in our midfield these days.
It's been a while.
To go from the days of Andreas Pereira and Fred in the centre midfield, like I feel blessed.
You've been praying for days like this, and listeners, we're gonna have to leave you there. There's no preview this week. There will be, or through the keys hole, I believe, may make a return on Thursday as the news is announced that the world's 3 biggest bellends are going to gather in a room or have gathered in a room as Piers Morgan interviews Richard Keys and Andy Gray. We are going to go through all the quotes that comes out of that and all the moments.
I'm sure it would just be banter.
It will be 100% just banter. But guys, we're going to leave you there and we will see you on Friday. We record on Thursday. The pods are on Friday. I always get that wrong. But please do follow us on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, on Instagram at Anglo-Italian Pod. Follow us on TikTok at Anglo-Italian Pod. Connect with us on LinkedIn. Subscribe and like everything here. The World Cup predictor videos are kind of old now, but you can watch and see how wrong people are. And we will see you on Friday, guys. This is the awkward wave bit. Bye, guys.